At the very beginning, let's talk about something that has confused, frustrated, and emotionally exhausted more men than almost anything else in modern dating. Because today's topic, when a woman gives mixed signals, this is what it really means, isn't about decoding texts or guessing intentions. It's about understanding the psychological state behind inconsistency. Mixed signals are not random, they are not mysterious, and they are rarely about timing or bad communication. They are the result of a very specific internal conflict happening inside her. When a woman gives mixed signals, what she's really experiencing is emotional ambivalence. Part of her is drawn to you, and part of her is holding back. And instead of resolving that conflict internally, it leaks out through inconsistent behavior. One day she's warm, responsive, engaged. The next day she's distant, slow, unclear, or emotionally unavailable. And because most men are wired to look for certainty, this inconsistency keeps them stuck in a loop of hope and confusion. The first thing you need to understand is that attraction and availability are not the same thing. A woman can feel attraction and still not feel ready, safe, or willing to fully invest. Mixed signals happen when attraction exists without commitment readiness. She enjoys your attention, your presence, and the emotional value you bring. But she's not aligned enough internally to choose you fully. This internal hesitation can come from many places: unresolved attachment patterns, fear of vulnerability, past relationship wounds, or simply a lack of emotional clarity. But regardless of the source, the outcome is the same. She stays close enough to feel good, but distant enough to avoid responsibility. From her perspective, this doesn't feel manipulative. It feels confusing. She's responding honestly to how she feels in the moment. When she's in a good emotional state, she leans in. When doubt, fear, or overwhelm kicks in, she pulls back. And instead of choosing one direction, she oscillates. This is why mixed signals are so draining. You're not dealing with a clear yes or a clear no. You're dealing with a maybe that keeps changing shape. The second truth most men miss is that mixed signals often mean she likes how you make her feel, not necessarily who you are as a long-term partner. Attention, consistency, emotional safety, and validation feel good. They regulate emotions, so she keeps the connection alive because it meets a need. But when things start moving toward commitment, clarity, or emotional responsibility, resistance appears. And instead of communicating that resistance directly, it shows up as inconsistency. One day, she talks about the future. The next day she goes quiet. One moment, she flirts. The next she creates distance. This push-pull dynamic is not accidental. It's her nervous system trying to manage closeness without fully surrendering to it. Another critical layer is power imbalance. Mixed signals often emerge when one person is more invested than the other. When she senses that you are emotionally available regardless of her behavior, there's no urgency for her to resolve her feelings. She doesn't have to choose, because you're filling the gap with effort, patience, and understanding. And this is where men unknowingly make the situation worse. They try to stabilize the connection by giving more reassurance, more texts, more flexibility, more emotional labor. But this doesn't bring clarity. It delays it. The more you tolerate ambiguity, the more comfortable ambiguity becomes for her. Mixed signals are sustained not just by her confusion, but by your willingness to stay in uncertainty. Another reason mixed signals appear is that she may be keeping you as an emotional option, not in a malicious way, but as a form of security. You represent consistency, interest, and emotional safety. Even if she's unsure about you romantically, letting go feels like loss. So she keeps the door open just enough to avoid that loss. This creates a dynamic where you're close enough to invest but never close enough to feel secure. And the danger for men is that hope fills in the blanks. You start interpreting her good moments as proof that the bad moments don't matter. You focus on potential instead of patterns. But psychology is clear on this. Patterns reveal truth, not moments. Mixed signals are a pattern of unresolved internal conflict. And that conflict doesn't resolve itself unless something changes. Here's the part that most men don't want to hear but need to understand. Mixed signals are information, not a challenge. They are not an invitation to try harder. They are not a puzzle to solve. They are a signal that alignment is missing. And the correct response to missing alignment is not pursuit, it's grounding. When you stop reacting emotionally to every shift in her behavior, you take your power back. When you stop asking, "What does this mean?" and start asking, "Is this enough for me?" the dynamic changes. The healthiest thing you can do when faced with mixed signals is to stop rewarding inconsistency. That doesn't mean confrontation or ultimatums. It means consistency on your end without overinvestment. You remain calm, clear, and self-directed. You don't chase closeness when she pulls away, and you don't emotionally overattach when she leans in. This creates emotional neutrality, and emotional neutrality forces clarity. Either she leans in consistently because she senses stability and self-respect, or the connection fades because it was being held together by imbalance. Both outcomes are wins. Another important truth is that mixed signals are often a reflection of internal boundaries, not external interest. She may genuinely care about you, but care alone doesn't create a healthy relationship. Commitment requires emotional availability, self-awareness, and the ability to choose. When those elements are missing, inconsistency becomes the default behavior, and no amount of patience can substitute for someone else's internal readiness. This is why waiting, hoping, or trying to be the exception rarely works. You're not fighting for attraction, you're waiting for resolution that only she can create. The most powerful shift you can make is moving from interpretation to evaluation. Stop trying to decode her behavior and start observing how it makes you feel. If you feel anxious, unsure, or emotionally off-balanced, that's not chemistry, that's misalignment. Attraction should feel engaging, not destabilizing. Not confusing. When you stop accepting mixed signals as normal, your standards rise naturally. And when your standards rise, your tolerance for emotional ambiguity drops. This doesn't push the right woman away. It filters out the wrong dynamic. Women who are emotionally available don't send mixed signals. They may move slowly, but they move clearly. They don't oscillate between closeness and distance. They communicate through consistency, not confusion. And the moment you internalize that, mixed signals lose their power over you. They stop feeling personal. They stop feeling like a reflection of your worth. They become what they always were: information. Information that helps you decide whether to stay or step away. And that decision, made from self-respect instead of hope, is what restores your emotional balance. Because the goal was never to decode her feelings, the goal was to protect your own clarity. When you do that, mixed signals no longer trap you, they free you.